Hey everyone, just a heads up that the audio quality might be a little rough in this episode due to a technical glitch during recording. We're working on getting things back to normal for next time. So thanks for listening and understanding.
Hello, and welcome to No Borders, No Filter podcast, an uncensored, deeper perspective of expat life and travel as a solo Gen X from New York. I'm your host, Debra, the experienced explorer. In today's episode, with my guest, Luann Williams, we will be discussing immersive travel, life experiences, and the benefits of hands-on exploration in cultures outside of American borders. Let me introduce my guest. Luann Williams was born and raised in the Bible Belt town of Lubbock in West Texas. As a child growing up in the 80s, she was fortunate not to be distracted by social media and constant screens, although MTV did turn her into an avid fan of hard rock music. Yeah. Today she lives in a small town outside of Austin, Texas, with her wife and 4 animals. She works as a Spanish professor at Texas State University. She discovered her passion for Spanish language and various cultures in the 8th grade. Since then, she has continued to pursue the interest and is currently applying for a PhD program to further her studies in Spanish culture and languages. Before we get into the interview, for context, let's briefly review what is immersive travel in cultures. What does that mean? Unlike tourism or sightseeing, immersive culture travel offers a range of benefits, including deeper cultural understanding, personal growth, and getting to know local people, appreciation for their food, their cuisine, customs, history, and supporting local businesses like at local markets, and also in the preservation of supporting their environment and local customs. All right, Luann, welcome to No Borders, No Filter. It is so great to see you. And just for reference, I want to let people know that I met Luann when I was living in Austin, Texas. I am a nomadic person, and therefore I also was nomadic in the U.S. and Texas was, I believe, the last stop before I went abroad. All right. Welcome, Luann. Hi. How are you doing?
Hey, Debra. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We are both doing our first interview on a podcast. This is really exciting to do this journey with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
The last time we saw each other has it been a decade?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just about, and I'll tell you why I know that, because I left right after the elections of 2016 when Trump was elected, and I renewed my passport at that time. So yeah, so we're in my 9th year.
I remember that time well. I might have been a bit envious that you left.
I was one of those people that said, oh, I'm going to go to Canada or I'm leaving the country, but never did. But I acted on my word. I mean, that was it. Done. All right. So I'm going to ask you, we're going to talk about 3 different topics. The first topic we're going to talk about is the personal view about immersion, immersive life or immersive travel, and your perspective of that with your experiences. My first question to you, Luann, is what are your first thoughts or what are your first words? What come to mind when you think of the word immersive or immersive life, immersive travel?
Yeah. The first thing I think is, wow, it would be fascinating to find myself, in another place within a whole different culture, unlike my own. Part of that to me is very exciting and thrilling. And then the next thing I think is that would take a lot of courage. I believe it does take a lot of courage for somebody to leave and go immerse yourself in another culture, another country for an extended period of time. But for me, I think the fascination outweighs the fear. Since a young age, I kind of always had this curiosity about other people, about the world. And so when I finally had the opportunity to live in another place and experience another culture, some of my expectations weren't met. But overall, I'm glad I did it.
So before we go a little further, why don't you just tell them which country or countries that you did immerse into?
Yes, so I went to Chile in South America, and I was there for about half a year.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I'm just curious, are you an all in, all out type of personality? Like when you do something, you are all in, or kind of in between? Like when you immerse yourself in your life on a day-to-day with your work or with your relationship or with your dogs, what kind of personality are you? Are you immersive personality, you think?
Yes, absolutely. I am an all-in 100% kind of person. I've always been that way. I think that it's maybe has its pros and cons, but yes, for example, when I decided I wanted to go abroad, I knew that I would find a way to make it happen. There was no question about it. When I commit to doing something, I'm all in, and I take the steps that are needed to accomplish whatever it may be. It even goes over into my love of music. I'm a very big fan of music. I love rock music, hard rock, but I love all music in general.
Okay, I definitely know that you're into music. When you say that there are pros and cons of immersive life, you already kind of suggested sometimes it's not so great. Can you share an example of when is it a con?
Yeah, leaving your comfort zone. I mean, you're leaving a lot behind. You're giving up a lot. My personal experience, there were certain things that I missed, like food. I missed my favorite foods. Missing friends and families. That was a big one for me. And then just the luxuries that we have here in the United States that maybe other countries don't have. I missed a lot of those luxuries. For example, hot water. Where I lived in Chile, we did have hot water, but it was limited. When you took a shower, you had to turn on a gas tank, and the gas was what heated up the water. And so if the gas was running very low, then you probably couldn't take a shower very long, or you just take a cold shower. Stuff like that.
That is definitely true. The creature comforts. I definitely identify with that. My last question on topic one regarding just in general immersive life or the word immersion. Do you think because of technology today or our convenient lifestyle that we are too superficial and need to engage in more immersive conversations, friendships, travel? Do you think that's important?
Yes, I think it's very important, especially at this point in history. What the world needs is we need to be more connected. People need to focus more on connecting with one another, but there's a lot of division in the world. I definitely recommend travel to anyone, experiencing another culture to anyone. It's life-changing. It changes one's perspective on the world. It changes your perspective dramatically on life. And so, I do understand, though, that there's some people that just don't desire to go outside their box and experience another culture. I wouldn't say they're necessarily superficial, but I would say they're definitely missing out.
I definitely agree with you with that. It's like for me, as someone who lives an immersive life full time, not everyone is living that way. And as I'm living in a normal, average, routine life right now, most people are in their day to day and either don't have time or don't have interest in an immersive conversation or have room for a new deep relationship. It's been really challenging for me because I want my whole life to be immersive. Oh yeah, I really would love it if the world could slow down a little and get deeper into something more than just our basic needs. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. It's very important that people try to understand one another. If we had more of that in this world, perhaps we wouldn't have all the problems that we have. And in order to learn to understand other people, you have to make some kind of effort to connect with them, to learn about them, something to break that barrier, to get outside that box that sometimes people live in. It's an invaluable experience, without a doubt.
Now we kind of have a basic understanding of immersive and the need for it. Now we're going to go into topic number 2, which is leaving the U.S. and going to Chile, which I'm really, to be honest with you, I am so jealous and I can't wait to hear about this because I've lived in Peru and, you know, I really appreciate South American cultures. People are super friendly, warm. As an artist, everything is so vibrant and so much color, you know, compared to the United States where everything's like beige and draggy to me. And in other countries, they mute color to keep things, I don't know, calm or, you know, just no one feeling out of sorts or, you know, offended. Chile, Peru, Bolivia I went to. I haven't been to Brazil yet, in Argentina, but we know these countries offer such vibrance in their life. And so, you know, for me as Peru, as being the first place I really did live abroad, I'm really, though, excited to hear more about South American culture, such as Chile. So my first question to you was Chile your first experience traveling/living outside of the U.S.?
It wasn't my first experience traveling outside of the U.S., but definitely my first one living outside. I had gone to, I believe it's called Tijuana, Mexico, which is a border sister city with San Diego. That was when I was in 8th grade or something. So I always consider my experience in Chile as my real first experience out in another country, in another culture.
Why did you choose Chile? Why Chile? What attracted you there? I mean, again, you lived so close to Mexico and other Central American, you know, cultures that speak Spanish, for example. So what made you choose Chile?
Well, I was always fascinated with South America and all the different cultures within South America. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I knew that I wanted to leave the U.S. and go live somewhere in South America, some Spanish-speaking culture. To do that, I found an opportunity to be an English teacher. This opportunity was based in Chile, like a government-sponsored program. And this program enabled me to go to Chile, placed me with a host family, and where I was teaching at a local school. Yeah, I want to go to all the countries in South America eventually. You know, I'd love to. It's that's my goal. But ultimately, though, my main goal for wanting to go anywhere it's Spanish-speaking culture was to improve my language skills because I knew that I wanted to continue working on my Spanish and getting better at it because I knew one day it would ultimately be kind of like my ticket to whatever career I chose because I loved Spanish.
And as far as choosing Chile and being actually really, really south of the equator, you must have experienced different weather conditions and time differences with your family and other things that were an initial shock or, you know, things that you didn't necessarily know was going to be like for you. So can you share, again, you shared about 6 months you were there. So did you have that cultural shock experience while you were there? And if you did, how long did it take for you to feel used to the local customs or used to the time difference or weather conditions and so on?
I mean, as far as culture shock, so my experience was I originally flew into Santiago, Chile, the capital, where I attended like a week-long training, teaching English. And then from there, I went to my place where the program had placed me to live. And I had no idea where that would be going into this. It turns out it was in a small town called Caldera on the Pacific coast. It's located in the Atacama region of Chile within the Atacama Desert. one of the driest regions in the world. It only rains like one time a year there. And it's a coastal town. Fishing is very much part of its economy. Yeah, so it was a small town, about 13,000 people, where I was coming from, Austin, Texas, a big city. So that was probably the first thing, living in a small town. Just like the architecture, everything was just so different. Like all of a sudden I didn't see fast food restaurants and, nothing there was familiar, of course, except for the language. Luckily, my host family was welcoming and took me in. For a while, I had some issues down the road with somebody in the host family, but, and I will say another thing that was sort of a culture shock that I was unaware of was there's a lot of stray dogs in South America and in Chile. And so when I first got there, I would start seeing dogs on the street and I would think, oh, okay, they're just, maybe they got away, and I would give them some food, give them some water. And then I started to think, oh, I'm going to help them all, until I realized, oh, these dogs, they live on the street. And so that really took some getting used to, because I saw some dogs that were in really bad shape. That part was tough for me, but they're a completely different culture. Their priorities are different than ours here in the U.S. They may not have the resources that we have to protect animals. So that was a big shock for me.
That's interesting. I experienced the dog issues as well because I did travel and lived shortly in Costa Rica as well as I said Peru, and there was those issues as well. And in the Philippines right now, it's also an issue. And as you said, they do have different priorities, and different cultures they place different values on certain animals as well, as what I've learned. If I lived when I was in Malaysia, because of their religious views, cows were a different value, or these animals that you think are of value aren't of value. So you're right. Every culture has their differences. And if we're going to be living in that culture, we have to accept or adapt to it, because we don't have a right to tell these people otherwise, right? Because we're guests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big animal lover. I have dogs. I have a cat. And so I won't lie. It was difficult for me. I saw some animals that were in very bad shape and I almost wanted to cry. But it just was one of those things that throughout my experience, I came to realize that this place is different. I'm not in the United States. If I could save all these dogs, I would. Obviously, I can't. But, I came to the conclusion that one culture isn't better than the other. We're just different. We have different priorities.
Can you share a little bit more about your an immersive favorite experience? You talked about immersing in the culture by living with a home family, which is a great way to get to know a culture, is to live in someone's home and get to know how people live on a day-to-day basis. But can you share one more favorite thing you experienced or you observed that really got you immersed into the Chilean culture?
So I will say probably my most memorable experience during my stay there was our winter break, because there, winter is happening in June, July, and August, while summer is happening here. During my winter break, I took a trip up north to a little town called Taltal. It's spelled Taltal. And I also went to another town called San Pedro de Atacama. San Pedro de Atacama is a town in the Atacama Desert, and it's actually a world tourist attraction. And so I went there because I'd read about it and that it was a really cool place to visit. Within that visit, I was by myself, but I met people from France, Canada, Japan, Netherlands. I met a Bolivian family that were there actually having a wedding for one of their family members. That experience was just amazing. It was this really cute little town in the desert. I remember one night I was going to meet, I'd gone on an excursion that afternoon and I met a couple people and they said, hey, let's go have dinner tonight. So I went to dinner with them. And then on my way back, I'm just kind of walking downtown and I could hear people not yelling, but kind of chanting, talking loudly. I thought, what's this all about? And so I go open the door and I walk in and it's a Pentecostal church service that was going on. I just kind of sat down in the back and just observed. Those people were very, very animated. And I think they even welcomed me there. It was just a really neat experience, connecting with people that I otherwise would never have the opportunity to. And then my other favorite experience was coming upon this Bolivian wedding on the street where my Airbnb was, where I was staying, or rather my hostel. I'm walking down the street and I open a door and there's a bunch of people eating and dancing. And so I just kind of step in. They're like, oh, come on in. And, eat, drink. And so they welcomed me in and I just started hanging out with them and, really neat. And then they invited me later on to I guess it was like a party, an after party they were having. I remember I went and it was in this little building. There was no roof. I don't know if this was someone's house or what, but these people were just having such a great time. They were dancing, drinking wine. There was music. I remember they gave me this little ribbon, this little thing to remember them by, so that was so cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mentioned in a previous episode of mine about what home is like to me. And it's these once in a lifetime moments where strangers welcome you into your home, welcome you for food. They don't know you. You're a foreigner. You don't look like them. They don't know anything about you. And yet you are immediately welcomed like family. It is the best feeling in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. You realize while you're there, okay, I'm the minority here. And then you feel so fortunate that, they're treating you so well. Like they are glad you're there. They, they want to introduce you to their family. They want to feed you. They want to show you around, they want to make you feel welcome. Yeah.
And that's what I've been, talking about a lot was because people ask me, why did you choose to go here or there or return to a place? And it's because I feel welcome. I want to feel welcomed where I live. I mean, there's for one thing a travel experience that if I don't feel welcome, that's okay, because it's an experience. But if I want to live somewhere now, feeling welcomed, it's definitely a big part of my choice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, there's definitely one more question I have to ask you now that you've shared this amazing experience is what Chilean customs would you think would benefit the American culture? What would you want to take from Chile and bring it back to either your local community or more nationwide? What do you think we could learn from as an American?
Yeah. One thing I really noticed and that I really liked was when you meet someone new, for example, you walk into a room and somebody introduces you to their friend. In Chile, and I think in a lot of Latin American countries, when you meet someone, it's a lot more intimate. It's a lot more personal, right? It's customary there to go up to the person and you kiss each other on both cheeks. It's not, shake hands and then go back your own ways. It's more personal. I feel like people are maybe a little more genuine. And you can't say that all across the board, but that was my experience. I mean, every time I met someone new, it was like they come to meet you, you have their full attention. They're not looking around like, nice to meet you. Come in,
I do know.
Kisses on the cheek, and you chat for a little bit. And it felt like a real human connection, so to speak.
Yeah. It's the human connection. That's something that, again, that I have shared about is I'm all about individualist life, which is definitely American in a general context. Of course, there's cultures that have more community feel to it, maybe smaller towns, but we live more in, populated areas, but I need that human, that organic, that analog, that Gen X connection, because that's what I really miss more than anything. If I could go back 30 years, it's because of this. I mean, living and traveling in countries that are still developing or not as technologically advanced is such a pleasure. So I hear you. Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to get into topic number 3, which is a little combination of again, talking about being immersive. It's also going to be about American culture and a little bit about Gen X. little bit of all these three, because immersive living, we did as children. I was a child that, like many Gen X, we played on the streets, we played with our friends. We had to call people on the phone, not text, and hear a voice. And we would have great conversations. We might have seen each other all day and still have this half an hour conversation on the phone at night after dinner. Very little of our lives was behind a screen. I did have ColecoVision. I did start learning about those games, of course, Pac-Man and stuff like that. But we lived in immersive, all the way into our early adulthood. We lived in an immersive lifestyle. And in my podcast, in my outro, I say to people to go out and get your hands dirty. And that is part of being an immersive life. It's not getting afraid to get dirty. My question to you is, did you have a similar experience? Like, you feel healthier with this immersive childhood? And part B of that question is, why do you think it is important for both kids and adults to go out and get a little dirty in their life?
Yes. So as a child, I feel very fortunate that I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 79. I think you said you were born in 74.
1973.
Oh, 73. Okay. Even better.
Yeah.
You got all the great music. Yeah. So I would be outside all day on my bike. I climbed trees. I did everything. I skateboarded. We had a field down the street that we would go. We catch toads and put them in shoe boxes and bring them home. Drink from the water hose, run around barefoot. And so I feel like my generation was kind of at the tail end of all that, right before technology started becoming more prevalent, kind of taking over more. So yeah, I guess, those experiences as a child gave me a lot of courage that I may not have otherwise had if I was born, say, in 2000 or something. As far as why it's important or why people should consider, like you say, getting their hands dirty, I think that it's important to try to break out of one's bubble, try to meet, befriend, form friendships with other people that you may otherwise think, I have nothing in common with them. When in reality, I think we have a lot more in common than we realize. With my experience in Chile and other experiences that I've had, I think that at the core, people in general, we're really not much different. We all basically have the same needs. We are just surrounded by our own countries, our own cultures, our own communities, everything we're told from childhood. It's easy to be sheltered in a way. People should make that effort to get out of that bubble, challenge themselves, be brave.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And of course, not just in America, I find it in most places that we do gravitate to what is comfortable and safe. But I have also mentioned to people that when we were children, we were very curious and we would be much more open to talking to a new friend at a school or just be more open to have that happen. I believe that technology has also created too much fear to get to know each other, and that the bubble, we are creating even a tighter bubble because of all these things that we're seeing. But as someone that is living, an expat nomadic life, I can attest that the world is really not as, let's say, scary or dangerous as people we're seeing it in the news. It's just that we are going macro into certain things, and therefore when you see that macro so often, it becomes like a reality that the world is just completely unsafe.
Right. I think people kind of create this reality in their mind based on what they see on TV, what they hear, and it's simply not true. It's easy to kind of hide behind a computer screen or text or email rather than just talk to someone face to face. But I think so much is lost in that. Kind of goes back to that human connection thing.
As someone that has had that hands-on experience of going to a culture, knowing nobody until you got there, basically, and then making these lifelong friends and memories, what suggestions, maybe if you can give me a couple of simple steps that you would suggest to help people get out of their comfort zone, as you said, get out of their bubble, what would be like one or two simple things that are really great, but maybe people don't realize would help them be more immersive?
It could be something as simple as reading a book. Go read a book about a culture, even if it's fiction, something that is set in another country or some culture that may interest you that you're curious about, watch a documentary, watch a movie, make an effort to start talking to people that you otherwise wouldn't because you have these preconceived notions of, they're nothing like me. Maybe trying to break out of that, be brave and be surprised. People like when you talk to them.
Where would be a place where people could meet someone different than themselves that they feel safe doing? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they don't want to go into a completely different culture than themselves. They might feel a little overwhelmed. So could be a place within maybe their neighborhood or in their city area that might be a good place to put themselves in a social situation that might lead to a new friend?
Yeah, maybe going to like a grocery store or a store tailored to one specific culture. You know, maybe go in that store and just look around and could be something like that. It could be, you know, get online and see if there's anything happening in your community, any types of events that you could maybe attend, cultural events. If you go to school, you know, there's probably students of many cultures there. See if you can maybe join them for something. You definitely have to make an effort, though. You have to seek it out if you really want it.
I agree. I'm just saying those are great examples because, a lot of times people are like, yeah, I want to do something, but I really don't know how to get started. So thank you for sharing those ideas. I think those are really great ideas.
Well, and I just thought of one that I didn't say. Go to a restaurant, a different kind of restaurant of a different culture.
Yes. One where the servers and the cooks are from that culture.
Yes, where they may not even speak your language, right? For example, maybe an Ethiopian restaurant, an Indian restaurant, a Mexican restaurant. And there's all kinds.
Yeah. I was thinking, like you said, supermarkets and looking around at their food. I find that so fascinating when I go to another culture. Is just walk around and see what their products are. And you're like, what is this? And they're like, in a curious way, like, what is this? And it's like, it's so interesting, the different ways people, product things and the way they mix things. But also for me, what I also love is the live markets and going to, fresh produce and, people, you're face to face with them. And I just love that experience so much.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great idea. Go out to the markets, like you said, anywhere where you can just start interacting and mingling with people. And you'll start to realize, hey, people are much different than me. They might eat different kind of food, but
they're still eating food.
Yeah, they're very friendly.
I mean, our commonalities are much more than our differences. I mean, we have to do the same things every day. It's just how we do things or how we speak a language is what's different. But, we all need to work. We all need to make money. We all need to eat. We all need friends, so. Yeah.
Our basic needs are all the same. I'm sure you probably know this better than anyone. You've lived in so many places. You've experienced this, and I bet you have lots of great stories. And I look forward to hearing more of your stories on your podcast episodes in the future.
Definitely. I mean, I would definitely share, I think it's really important what you touched upon that I should soon talk about is how much we have in common with each other and how much we should look at our fellow human as someone we have more in common with than what we don't have in common with them.
Yeah. And, in the current climate here in my country, the U.S., that's just something that I keep going back to. There's so much division, especially if you watch the news. I mean, that stuff will drive you nuts. Really try to always remember these people may be saying this and that. But if we were to really sit down and have a conversation with one another, we might not be so different,
Yeah, I agree. And then it's really hard for me to also see it possible because we are at such polar, visions of what America should be right now. We are more polarized than we've ever been as a country ever in history as a fact. So my last question to you, time is flying by, is so many problems right now in America that are in the news, and it's affecting the world, actually. We have to keep in mind that America is one of the most powerful countries in the world, and we influence it in many ways. And obviously, businesses and economies are dependent on ours in a most general context way. And that's why a lot of people around the world do keep their nose in the news and try to learn what's going on, because it might be affecting them, including our neighbors right now in Canada with the tariffs on our imports and exports that are going to greatly affect both countries right now. So, our current government is doing things that are really not bringing people together and not helping the people that need it the most vulnerable. So I was just wondering if you could just share, in your opinion, based on your experiences, though, opinion based on experiences is always what I'm looking for, is if there was something that we could change, our president, for example, regarding the immersion of things. Do you believe that if our leaders were more immersed in our day-to-day life, then it would help improve their choices?
I think it's possible. I mean, they already do travel all over the world, right? They meet with world leaders all over.
Yeah, they're meeting world leaders, but they're not immersed in the local people, really. They don't see the day-to-day life, what's happening to Americans, day to day. They might go for a moment to check in, but they don't really have the local experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if they were to experience this kind of cultural immersion that we're talking about, for an extended period of time, I think it would be inevitable that they would start to adapt and feel like they've become accustomed to living where they live. And yeah, for sure. I think that cultural immersion is life-changing, no doubt.
How has your travels and living in Chile made you either a better human in some way or able to implement it into your work environment that helps improve your overall work environment and so on?
So, my experience, I'd say first and foremost, it's definitely given me a deeper understanding of humanity in general. It definitely helped me become a better communicator because I was in a lot of situations where, I had to communicate in the Spanish language to be able to make things happen. You have to learn to be patient. You have to learn that some people maybe don't respond the same way that other people would. You have to, sometimes you may not want to use a certain tone of voice. As far as how it's helped me with my career, I teach full time. And so I have all kinds of students. And so, they can be very different, and I kind of just have to learn to be on a level with each student rather than trying to pull them up to my level or, I don't want to pull them down, but I kind of have to learn how to get on their level and communicate with them in a way that helps them and that they can understand. So they're able to do better.
So would you say that you're more compassionate or empathetic because of your experiences with the Chilean culture?
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Because, for me, I think that in order to be more empathetic and compassionate to others is to walk in their shoes, so to speak. And I believe that immersive travel or, again, living in other cultures, or again, as you say, even doing these local experiences in your neighborhood can help you have a better understanding, a better truth about others, and have a little bit more compassion for them instead of just pointing, why are you acting this way? It helps you understand what's going on and be like, oh, I understand.
And I don't find that it's that hard to try to understand someone else and what they might be going through. Sometimes as a teacher, I feel like maybe I care too much. I want to see people happy. I want to see people succeed. But, I also have to understand that there's only so much I can do. And then they have to do the rest. When it comes to making these connections with people and you help one another in some way, it's like we can feel like there's something greater than us, that's at work. And that's when you really get that feeling of like, okay, wow, there's so much more to life than just our daily routines and going to work, going to school, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much more.
Yes. I totally I got chills just listening to that, because to me, when I'm traveling or living in another culture, it could be the simple transportation difference. And then I'm more immersed in the local culture here because they have this really unique transport here called the jeepney, which looks like in the front like a normal Jeep, American Jeep, but it's like a size of like a bus almost, and you can fit 20, 21 people in it. And it takes you all around the local city, but you are literally sitting next to a complete stranger, being immersed in their routine. And it's just a beautiful experience. I think that's really what it comes down to, is that the routine can be truly beautiful. And what you shared made me feel like you had a really beautiful local experience. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for allowing me to share. I love talking to strangers. So you were just saying about riding next to a stranger, like my spouse, she's not as outspoken as I am. So when we go somewhere public, for example, I start talking to someone, she'll say, oh, okay, here we go again. I love sparking up conversations with anyone, I
didn't realize actually you were that outgoing, to be honest. I actually didn't know, because I see yourself as a social introvert like me, in a way. But I think that's really great. And perhaps your experiences abroad have given you a little bit more confidence in doing that. But more so, it's great that you can share that with your wife and maybe allow her to get a little bit more outside of her comfort zone a little bit, which is, that's what partners do, I think. Don't you agree?
Yes, it happens from time to time. I've told her I respect that maybe she may not want to, always go out with me, or she may not want to stay and talk for hours, and I have to respect that. But I know that's who I am. I'm probably going to be doing that for the rest of my life. I need that interaction with people.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like giving some spice to life,
Yeah. Variety is a spice.
All right. So I'm going to wrap up by saying, if you want to get in touch with Luann and learn more about Spanish culture, her travels to Chile, or again, just being a person from the United States that would like to learn a little bit more on getting that passport and getting out there, Luann is open to speaking with you on Facebook. I will put her link to her Facebook in the description, but her Facebook page name is Luann Elise, LUANNELISE. Thank you for tuning in to No Borders, No Filter. Please continue to listen, like, follow, and subscribe on all social media. And if you feel that someone could use a little wake-up call, please share this with your friends or family. All right, until next time, go out and get your hands dirty. Bye-bye.